Welcome to another episode of Patio Pondering, the podcast. We've taken a little bit of a hiatus. I have guests that were planting. I was planting, had other things in life, so we took a little bit of a break. But we're going to restart here today with talking to a friend of mine from south of Indianapolis. She has the joy of farming around suburbs of south of Indianapolis, so she understands the challenges of too many people on the road when she's pulling big farm equipment. But I met Jen a long time ago. We won't talk about how long ago, but we've known each other for a long time, and Jen's been a supporter of mine from a social media and sharing stories in agriculture over the past couple of decades. But my guest today is Jen Campbell. She and her husband farm, like I said, south of Indianapolis, and I appreciate the challenges that she gives to agriculture and what she shares. And on a side note, she asked me to participate in her writing project that she's focusing on farmwife feeds, and we'll hit on that a little bit later. That was a really gratifying request, so I appreciate that. So welcome, Jen, to Patio Pondering, the podcast.
Thank you.
Can you give us a quick update of what you and Chris do there in south of Indianapolis for my audience before we dive into the deep topics?
Yeah, so we live just south of Indy. I can see the lights of Indy at night. We live in Johnson County. We farm full-time. It's me and my husband Chris and our son Cole. We farm on his generational farm, Hoosier Homestead, and this is our full-time job.
So are you doing just row crops now? Or do you still have some pigs?
We are just doing row crops now, except for my hobby cattle herd. We were raising farrow to finish, then we did wean to finish, and, the industry just isn't the same, and it was either time for us to grow hugely, which in this area was not something we were interested in, or kind of throw the towel in, and we chose to throw the towel in, I guess.
Gotcha. And that's just a change of the industry.
Yeah.
It's the reality of swine in the United States. Oh.
Exactly. That's another topic for another time.
And we probably have better guests to talk about it that might not be as passionate about the change as you and I are.
That's right.
So what are you doing with your time in the summer now that you're not putting wheat out and tiling to get ground to spread manure on?
So we still raise winter wheat. We own our own tiling machines. So originally we started with winter wheat so that we had some place in the summer to haul hog manure. We will continue with the winter wheat so that we've now started rotating it more a little farther away and on different fields that need tiling during the summer.
So not having the manure gives you more flexibility with your tiling plans.
Absolutely. Gives us a lot more flexibility to work on that drainage issues we have on some farms and really take care of that.
So I have a bunch of guests that are, well, not guests, but audience that's throughout the United States, actually some foreign listeners too. And when I talk about tile and you talk about tile, I know this is a sidetrack, we'll just hit on this. We're talking a pattern tile that we're 40, 30, maybe even 20 feet apart on a pattern tile. Does that fit kind of where you are?
We do some pattern tiling. We pattern tiled a farm last summer. This summer we'll be doing a little pattern farming where we have wheat again. The other thing that we do though is fix those tiles that have been there for 100 years. Those clay tiles that are now breaking down full of dirt. So we go in and fix those with the plastic tiling so that they work a little better. We do pattern tiling, but also the goal with the tiling machine was to fix those fields that may not need the pattern tiling, but need those clay tiles redone so that the field is draining better and we don't have as much standing water.
Perfect. Well, you've got a lot of flexibility with the wheat and your own tiling machine.
Oh, definitely. Yep.
So I didn't invite you on here to talk about the intricacies of pattern tiling and subsurface drainage and how it affects crop rotations and your ability to grow a crop.
Thank God, because I'm not an expert.
There you go. Well, did you stay at the Holiday Inn Express sometime the last year?
No, but I should.
You should. We all should.
Yeah.
So I've always appreciated how comfortable you are on sharing what happens on your farm, but how you've also been able to edit what you share. And I don't mean edit to protect people, but edit just to be, shall we say, smart about what you share.
Not very many people call me smart, but I appreciate that.
There you go. Yeah. You owe me a cup of coffee.
Okay.
Is that a fair synopsis of how you share on social media about your farm?
Yeah, the goal for me personally when social kind of presented itself and it was, I guess it was there and it seemed like people had questions and maybe they didn't. Maybe I was just like, Chris says I'm an oversharer. I just like to share things. My goal was always to be real. But I think there's a huge difference in being real and being blunt, maybe, or spilling the entire can of beans. We deal with a lot of traffic here, and like every time I take, I have a Kinsey 1631 split row that folds, and so is very long, hard to get around. And people either try to pass me when I can't see them, or they're right up underneath my planter, and I can't tell they're back there. It angers me, and so like my first instinct is to like bash people like Facebook. Hey, but this is ridiculous. We need to have some respect. And I think the key is always to kind of hold back a minute, double think it, and because I don't think we need to say everything we're feeling. I think I might have got off topic there a little bit. I think that we need to think twice before we post.
Yes. A little self-editing, as it were.
A little self-editing. Like, my immediate response is to grab my phone and say something snarky, when really, if I take a deep breath and get out of the moment, hindsight, it wasn't as bad as what I think.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing that hits with that illustration you had of the person trying to plant you, I farm in a similar area. I understand. Is we're stressed at that time of year. I mean, you said you've got some stuff to plant. I've got some stuff to plant here. It's June 11th. We're a little stressed. We get inside that tractor cab. It's like, hey, we got to get done. And get the rain's coming or whatever. That stress, the higher cortisol level, probably makes us a little more snarky and makes us make decisions that we probably should.
Yeah. The other day I finished a no-till field up in Greenwood and high traffic area, and I just had cars all around me that had felt like no concept that I was there. And I got really angry, and then I thought to myself, before you post something, you can rant and rave all you want in the cab of the tractor, but before you post something, I always say to my kids when they have, they're like, Mom, I need help. I'm like, yeah, but I'm in the middle of something, or your emergency is not my emergency, and my emergency is not your emergency. I expect some passion or some leeway when I'm on the road, but quite honestly, those people may have been in a hurry too, and just because I'm behind the gun on planting doesn't mean that their world has to stop and revolve around mine.
Just a little sharing grace.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a topic that I've covered with my former career, that we had challenges with a certain employee. They didn't know what they were doing because they were thrown into something that they were learning. And it would be easy for me to say, well, this person doesn't know what the hell they're doing and get all right, as opposed to, hey, let's just take a breath. He's figuring this stuff out. Driver's got a problem. But at the same time, we don't have to be the ones that always give.
No, I don't. Yeah, I agree. You don't have to be. Yeah, you don't always have to be the one who gives, but you have to. It has to be a 50-50. I think we have to work together.
Yes, correct. Now I've taken the mantra or the attitude because I almost had a big catastrophe 2 years ago that I'm not going to pull over any further than I can. When we're talking in this case of sharing the road and stuff, just because it looks like I got room, but man, that bar pit or that ditch, you get a duel off the edge, and boom, you could flip over. So, kind of off topic.
I a little bit off subject, but that excuse me, that example, I always tell people if I talk about farming and tractors on the road, and then I also tell anyone new driving a tractor, if you get into a situation where you feel uncomfortable, stop.
Mm-hmm.
Stop the tractor in a place that, get over as far as you can that you feel comfortable. Stop the tractor, because traffic will sort itself out because people want to get places. And if something were to happen, an accident, you are sitting still and not at fault.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I tell people when they're in vehicles, I just spoke to a group Monday, and I always say, I know it looks like I'm taking up the whole road and I'm slowing you down, but I'm 3 times higher than you. I can see everything off the side of the road, including culverts, and I can see over the hill ahead of us. So if I'm not letting you around, I'm not being an ass.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying this isn't a safe place for any of us to do anything. You're either going to hit a culvert on your side because I can't get over, traffic's coming. I'm not being an ass.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would assume that you are the average person when it comes to farming and driving vehicles. There are some that do enjoy being roadblocks.
Absolutely, there are. But, they're probably in the minority. And if you do get behind somebody, I'll be honest with you. I'm human. I've probably been my share of an ass on the road in a tractor. But again, it goes back to being stressed and under the gun and 1 or 2 people who just can't use common sense. So I know I've been an ass on the road. I don't do it a lot.
You heard it here first. She admits to being an ass. Yeah. She took my compliment of her being smart a little too far.
Yeah, I know I have. I hate to admit that, but I know I have. But sometimes you just get to a point where if you don't get where you're going to the field and you don't get started, it's probably going to get worse. So I try really hard, though.
But if we get back to the point that we're talking about on sharing and oversharing and editing, you're doing a little self-editing as you're driving, giving people some grace. And as you share that, you're doing some self-editing of, instead of ranting and those SOBs from Greenwood and those SOBs from the suburbs, they don't know, you're just like, it's not worth it.
Yeah. I try really hard to self-edit. And honestly, I've come a long way on it. It's hard because it's emotional, number one. And it's hard to do that, but I think it's really important to think about it twice. Because you can't take it back. Right there, you can't take it back. You can delete it off social. It's never gone.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we all have those moments where things come out of our mouth, and the thing about social is that you have that chance to rethink what you're trying to say. Mm-hmm. When you're in a verbal conversation, you can't take those words back.
Yeah.
You can on social.
Yeah. Self-edit. And as we think about the mantra that we're told, and we've been told since social media started, of tell your story. Where does that self-editing and thinking about how you want to be perceived or how you want your farm to be perceived fit into telling your story?
That's a tough question, and I think that's different for everybody. I don't know that the problem is there is no playbook, there is no rule book. It's, for lack of a better term, it's the wild, wild west, and there aren't any rules. So I think that's where the self-editing comes in, and how do you want to present yourself, and how do you want your farm to look? I think we run into problems, this is my personal opinion, is that we don't realize that social is so local.
Mm-hmm.
We always think we're talking to people that aren't near us, and I'm amazed at how people in your area, I mean, would you say that people always say, would you say that to your grandma if you put it on social media? I'm like, would you say that to your neighbor? Would you say it? Because that's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We always think it's so far off, like it's people in another state. No, it's your neighbor.
Yeah.
It's your neighbor, whether you know it or not.
And here's where, and I wrote about this in the Patio Pondering last week or the week before, and it got a little bit of traction. When Damian Mason put comments on something, I hit a nerve. So
bingo. I have never had that happen, so congratulations on
that. People watch. And the illustration I used was somebody that shared a lot of information on their social media. They're telling their story, and they lost farm ground because of it. Because the impression was right that they couldn't handle what they already had. So why would I give them more?
Yeah. And I think we don't think about that because we don't feel like we're speaking to our neighbor. And I'm constantly amazed at how the people who comment or the people who, when you check your analytics, the people you see that are local that see that stuff. It's just, that blows my mind, honestly.
Local and silent.
Oh, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Chris Campbell's a lurker.
Oh, I know. I can see my podcast will say somebody from Greenwood. Listen.
Yeah. So, yeah. Chris Campbell's a lurker, and he'll tell you he is. He's like, yeah, I look.
Yeah. So you have that the mantra that we're told by the advocates, which just makes me want to vomit in my mouth when I say it, to tell your story. But at the same time, you have, and I've fallen into this as an expert in the swine industry and been, I won't say an influencer in the swine industry, but in my roles, I've been an expert. I'm still am. Oh, God, that stuff is just flat out wrong. It needs to be edited.
Yeah. I mean, that again, there is no rule book. There is no, everybody does something different. The story they're putting out there, I guess we need to remember the story they're putting out there is their story, not our story.
That's a good point.
And
But if that story that they put out is like an illegal use of an ingredient.
Yeah, that's a little weird. Mm-hmm. Why people would want to do that, I don't know. They think they're being funny. Also, you gotta wonder when it comes to advocacy, and I'm a preach to the choir person. I love the choir. They are my people. Mm-hmm. And they are probably who I'm talking to the most. I'm going to use air quotes here. I hope you don't show this video because I'm going to crap it. I don't educate the public. I have no desire to use that term. I have no desire to be the person in charge or to say, Jennifer Campbell says, no, don't do that. I don't want to educate anybody. It's not my job. Don't want that job. I'm a preach to the choir, and if you're not in agriculture but want to join my choir because you're interested, come on, let's go. But I don't know. I don't know why you'd want to give false information. I suppose they think they're being funny, and maybe they are. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, the illustration that I'm thinking of was a TikTok video on a deworming, and the responses to this TikTok were bifurcated. You had those of us, I might have responded, but you had cattle producers in this case that posted saying, "Do not put this. This is not how you do it. This is incorrect. This is not following the label." All those things that were taught in BQA, PQA, TQA. And you had the other side, which were some consumers saying, "Oh, finally somebody's telling the truth of what happens on the farm, and it's so good that you're showing all these tools, and this is how you do it." And it's like, but at the same time, how many of those people that were really responding were really the consumers?
Yeah, and why did they make the video? They made it for traction and analytics. And so, a couple things. Yeah, it's wrong. Would probably piss me off if I saw something that I knew about that was being represented wrong. The thing is that I'm not a statistics person, but every person who commented that isn't how you do it just gained that TikTok more traction, and more people saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And were they the right people that knew it was wrong, or were they more consumers who were like, "Oh my God, thank God, we know what's real and what to buy now"? You have no clue. You have no.
Mm-hmm.
It's the analytics. Your post that you're talking about the other day said, someone said, what did they say? Only good-looking women 18 to 30. I don't know. Do you remember that comment?
Yeah, that came from a young man from Ohio, and he was lamenting that the advocates had either really, really, really fancy equipment and deals, or they were young, attractive women in that 18 to 25 range that were getting traction.
And is that true? Yes, 100%. But you know why that's true? Analytics. Mm-hmm. There is no secret society or golden pitchfork holding farmers who decide who are advocates. None. It is social media. It is analytics. It is traction. And those people who get the deals, I don't have any deals. Those people who get the deals are the ones who have traction.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the ones who show up on your feed, and whether you know it or not, if you sit for 5 seconds and watch that video, analytics says, "Oh, you like this? Maybe we'll show you more." And then they just get more and more. There is no club that meets and decides who these people are. We are deciding with our choices on what we watch. We are deciding on the choices of what we like. I do not consider myself an influencer or an advocate, because mostly I hate that word. I don't want to be one. Do you have any clue, and maybe you do, I've tried, how long it takes to film yourself working, edit, post, make sure it gets seen? Oh my God, I lack time management skills the way it is. That would become, oh my God, that's a freaking nightmare. I've tried, can't do it. Mm-mm. I don't have the creativity, I don't have the time management. I mean, I can remember a few years ago, Chris calling me on the radio and saying, "Get off your phone, you will plant more acres." Or, "Oh no, it's for real," and he's right. Or, "If you had quit trying to film yourself pressure washing that hog barn, you would have been done 2 hours ago." He's exactly right. Their time management is way above me.
Well, and the other little secret, they have a team that we don't see that does stuff for them.
Yeah.
I talked to a podcaster friend of mine in Iowa, and when we were chatting, before we recorded, I said, how many, do you have any employees yet? Thinking that it was just them doing their stuff together. He goes, oh yeah, we got 10 employees. I said, 10 employees?
What?
Yes. He said, we got a full-time marketing manager, we got a full-time CDO, and we have 8 part-timers that do either IT, editing stuff. We have 10 employees for their podcasting. Yeah.
For a podcast?
Uh-huh. Yep. Yeah. So think about the big YouTube stars. Let's talk about Zach, the millennial farmer. He's got a crazy traction, and he has things out that people. He's not doing it by himself. I mean, it's not him. Oh, I'd take a video here and walk in the house and edit it. He's got he has to have a team behind it, and we don't see that. We just see someone get on a tractor and record and.
Yeah. Which more power to them, honestly, for time management skills, efficiency, knowing when you can't do everything yourself. Hats off to all of them, because I've tried and I can't do it, and I don't know that I want to.
And
I must be a control freak too.
Well, that's true. But at the same time, I've tried slightly. I mean, if you tried, I didn't try, but it is difficult to do, and it takes time. But as we're talking about this, I think about the challenge that ag has in general, and we talk about this outside of social media and influence and telling your story. But the challenge that agriculture, and I put quotes on ag, is what do we attack? What message do we send? Which attack do we address? Do we go after Prop 12? Do we go after Humane Society? Do we go after preserving glyphosate? What do we do as an industry? We can't even figure that out. Number one, we've got too many different directions that we're being attacked, and using air quotes. Number two, we have too much of a diversity in commodities. And number three, probably more importantly, we don't have the money. So as we're trying to tell our story, I mean, we can't figure out what we want to do as an industry. So how are we going to edit somebody from someplace that got traction on YouTube?
Yeah, I don't know that that's our job. I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's. I think I had to tell Chris this all the time. Block some of that shit.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to watch it all. Oh my God, you don't have to watch it all. We can't fix all the problems. If you're trying to fix all the problems, you're splintering all your effort. So focus on something that means something to you. Hi, Jen. I don't know. Hi. How are you? You took all the coffee.
I took all the coffee, so she's mad about that. Yeah. Yeah.
If I drank coffee, I'd understand, but I can't stand coffee.
There you go.
Chris gets it all.
So I guess the follow-up question to that, Jen, is: does the consumer care?
That's a damn good question, because I don't know. Some do. I don't think most do. You know, one of my favorite things is that people care on social.
Mm-hmm.
Your average consumer who is on social is going to say, "Oh, I purchased the non-GMO, organic, gluten-free, boneless bananas for my kids because I love my kids and want to give them the very best of everything." But on Wednesday night, the 3 kids have 3 different practices, and they are running like crazy, she's going to have no problem hitting up the McDonald's drive-thru.
Yeah.
So, it's hard not to take stuff personally like that, but how committed is that consumer on social to carrying through with 100% of what they're saying? And do they know what they're saying? I mean, boneless bananas? Hello. Of course there are. Non-GMO? There is no such thing as a GMO banana. And gluten? I don't think there's any gluten in a banana ever.
Yeah.
So I think I go back to buzzwords all the time. People throw out buzzwords. We throw out buzzwords.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm thinking about buzzwords is to get traction for this podcast. Of course we think about buzzwords.
There you go. It's a gluten-free, non-GMO podcast.
There you go. And no animals were harmed in the recording of this podcast.
No animals were harmed in the making of this. No additional steroids were used. We've come to educate the public. I don't know. It's such a, again, I guess it's the wild, wild west, and there's too many people to focus in, and there's no guidebook, and there's no, I post what makes me happy.
There you go.
How about that?
So do you think that you and I
post what makes me
happy? I like that. Do you think you and I are average social media proponents for agriculture?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I don't know that I can answer that. I don't have the traction that a lot of people have. I can't use TikTok. I feel stupid making TikToks.
Well, if you watch TikToks, you feel stupid. So there you go.
I don't do Snapchat. My kids try. They say, "Mom," I'm like, just so we can communicate as a family. You know, I have friends who say, "Oh, did you watch my Snapchat?" I'm like, "No, I can barely keep up with Facebook and Instagram. I can't keep up with Instagram." I love Twitter, but I don't advocate on Twitter because I love Twitter being my place that what I would call a water cooler. My coworkers are there. I post what makes me happy.
Okay.
Or what I feel comfortable posting. Sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's cocktails, sometimes it's food.
Okay.
It makes me happy. I don't know if we would be average or not. That's a good question.
Mm-hmm. Well, for our farm Facebook page, I used to share all kinds of stuff. Well, here I'm planting, and here's the lambing and all this, and I've kind of taken a step back to, I'm sharing what happens on our farm so that my aunts and uncles that grew up on the farm in the 40s, 50s, and 60s see what we're doing today. And I used to post, "Oh, we broke this, we broke that." And what really hit me, I was at K-State Swine Day several years ago. We were at Kites, having a good time. I had a bourbon in my hand, and somebody from the swine industry that we've tangentially interacted over the years came up and said, "Man, you sure break a lot of shit." And I'm going,
You know, that's a fine line when you tell, again, we go back to you tell the truth, do you tell the whole truth, how do you balance everything that you're doing so that you don't come across woe is me, or a martyr, or, oh, now you're just bragging.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, oh my gosh, it would be a constant inner dialogue.
Yeah.
Constantly. What did I post last time? What's the score? Have I posted too many breakdowns? Have I posted too many good days? Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. And it's a headache.
But if we get back to what you and I were talking about beforehand, before we recorded, the number of people that lurk, watch, monitor locally is a lot more than I think the average person that is posting things. Because
I think I think there are people who think locals can't see their stuff.
And that just blows me away.
I swear. I think they think locals can't see their stuff. And I'm like, just because you think locals might not be interested, oh, they're there.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're locals. Don't post it. They always say don't post something unless you'd say it to your grandma. Don't post it unless you'd say it to your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't be driving down the road taking a picture of 10-foot-tall horseweed in your neighbor's field and say, I'd be spraying that if it were my field. Oh my God, no, don't do that.
Yeah, because they could go around the section and find your field that has a corner that you missed.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is people out there who think that because it's social, it's not local. And that's a big mistake.
So here's talking about self-editing. You and Chris have corn and beans to plant. I have some corn and beans to plant. It's just the way it is. I'm not posting. We're still planting because people are going to say, well, so-and-so got done on June 1st and so-and-so got done on this day. And look at Dr. Smith. He didn't get his shit done. He's a horrible farmer. I ain't going to post that anymore. Whereas in the past, it would have been a glory. Hey, we finally got done. It's great. Now it's like, yeah, I ain't posting that getting done planting on June 12th. Because that local will be like, oh, there's old McDonald over there. He can't do his shit. Oh, Chris and Jen, they got rid of the hogs. They still can't get their stuff planted, even though there's valid reason. We had rain, we had breakdowns, whatever.
Right. And I think that's true. I do think that you have to take the good with the bad. Yeah, someone's probably going to say, oh, wow, they didn't get their they don't raise hogs anymore and they still didn't get done planting. I think that's where the self-editing comes in. Am I proud of the effort? Let's see, we planted, Chris is probably going to go, oh my God, Jennifer, that's not right. We planted 2 days towards the end of April, beginning of May. We were out 18 days, 3 weeks. Planted 2 more days out for, I don't even know, 42, I don't even know, some ridiculous amount of time. Then we went full bunny. Sunday to a Tuesday till we had rain again and got a lot in the ground. Pretty proud of what we did. Did some people get more in? Yeah. Did some people get less in? Yeah. I think when you are writing a post and then you're self-editing, I'm always careful to say things like, may not be all of it, may not get finished, but proud of what we did, or we probably could have gotten more done had we not done this. I think you need to self-edit, but I don't think you can constantly compare to what everybody else. And I know you need to self-edit, but you can't also, there's always going to be some schmo out there who has something negative to say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But I think it goes back to the self-editing and being mature in how you share on your social media.
How you share and how you phrase it. And then after that, if Negative Nelly has something to say, then, you know what, she's probably going to have something to say no matter what.
Yeah. Yep. But I think if we get back to the original question, does the consumer care? I think that for 99.99% of consumers, they don't give a hoot what Jen Campbell posts on her farm about whether she had hogs manure to spread or she broke a planter shank. They don't give a hoot.
I don't think it goes back to being within the choir. We are pretty hard on ourselves.
Oh God, yes.
We get so focused on what the consumer thinks that we're not nice to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're just not nice to each other. We're just, when we're posting, we think we're educating the consumer, again with my air quotes, when really we're just, again, preaching to the choir or talking within the choir, and the choir's beating up on each other.
So if the consumer doesn't care, well, how do we get across to our brethren that, hey, outside of those, the small minority that have traction outside of ag, How do we get across to them that, hey, you're just posting stuff for me to see?
I don't know that you have to.
Well,
I think when you post, you need to realize you're posting for you.
mm-hmm.
And not, I don't know. I don't know how people do it. I watch Instagram Reels all the time, and I don't know what I'm taking from them, I guess. Now that I think about it, I watch them to kill time or to see what's going on in the world, but what am I taking from them? I don't know.
Well, and when
I'd have to think about that.
The handful of farmers I follow on social media, I don't know if there's anything I take from them, or I follow them simply because I'm like Dave Walton. I follow him just because we're friends, and like, hey, he's got triticale he's making hay on. Just kind of a way to keep up with your friends without having to call them and bug them all the time. I think that's fair. If I need something, if something breaks on my planner, I will go search it and use YouTube or something and find that answer. How to replace X. I'm not just waiting for Jen to post something because she happens to have the same planner I do.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. I post Facebook memories. I love Facebook memories because like the other day one came up like, 10 years ago, and that's not an exact. I just can't remember. We finished planting on this date, and we're like, so this isn't such a horrible year. Or Facebook memories, or like you say, to keep up with friends, or just, I don't know, sometimes it's because I sit in a tractor cab alone and I need someone to talk to.
There you go.
And I don't sit around waiting for people to post things that if I'm having trouble. Now, I will say that on Twitter I have gotten lots of help on my planter if I posted, Unit 7 won't shut up. And someone's been like, check this. And I'm like, that was it. But yeah, you're right. You go somewhere else. I mean, you're not sitting around waiting for information to solve your problems.
And I think that's interesting how Twitter's changed for us over the last 15 years. I mean, the interaction you and I have is direct. It's not through Twitter anymore.
Yeah, I think Twitter's changed a lot. Yeah. Which is amazing, though, because without it, we wouldn't be where we are. So.
And as I asked that question, I thought about TikTok, and I got on TikTok late compared to what they call Ag Talk. And I think about those personalities that have gotten a lot of traction, and I don't interact with them directly except outside of a couple people. But I've heard more than once that, that's his TikTok persona. He's not like that in person.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, that the person I'm thinking about found a shtick and just took it and run with it. But he said, he's not that way when you sit down and talk with him. So I think some of those.
I can see that.
Yeah, totally on TikTok when you're trying to make something in 20 seconds or 11 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever it is. So on one hand we're putting on a persona to gain traction. That might not be us.
For sure. I mean, that's what analytics are. That's what you get. And never thought about it. My goal when I started social was to be the same person on social that I am in real life. So if you met me, you didn't say something like that, like, that's not who she really is, and not in a bad way. Originally, it was, but I forget my point now. But that's interesting. I never thought about that. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, I guess, but I think that goes back to locals are watching what you're doing. They know if,
Yeah.
Huh. Never thought about
that. When that person said that to me, I thought, makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh? Oh.
And that not necessarily in a bad way. Like my theory has always been to be the same person I am online as in person, whereas I guess it's not a bad thing to have like not really a second personality. That sounds like psycho, but a persona
The locals say you are.
that is online. I never thought about it that way. That's actually very interesting.
Well, and I think it also goes back to the social media genre. I mean, TikTok is not made for you to sit down and have a discussion about X. I mean, think about it. They started with 30-second max. What can you do in 30 seconds? Yeah. And I think about the few posts that I had on TikTok that went viral. One was me jumping out of the tractor cab at midnight, finding a lid for a Kinsey box and being awful excited about it. It had 250,000 views, and it was just stupid. But the post where, hey, here's what I'm doing, gets 300. I mean, it depends on the venue. And TikTok is not the place to tell my story.
No, it's a place to be funny in 30 seconds, and it's not some place to because they play and it's not something you read and they have to play over and over again for you to think about. It's a place for you to scroll. Yeah.
So have you noticed the change in commodity organizations promoting social media over the last decade or so?
Maybe. I don't know. I've never thought about it. I don't pay much attention to commodity organizations.
Well, I think back to the time that you and I were at the Indiana Soy. Oh, geez. Was that 12 years ago? 10 years ago?
A long time ago.
Yeah. And it was...
We won't say.
It was kind of instructional.
You're right. I guess I had never thought about it. No, I don't... I think that commodity organizations, probably aren't doing as much with individual farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The training, the use it, I think that you're right. No, they're not. Yeah. They're either doing their own or have certain people that they are working with.
Well, you think back to,
I never thought about that.
You think back to the handful of the elite that you and I talked about before we hit record. NCGA, NCBA, NPPC, National Pork Board, United Soybean Board. I don't think they had a single input in how those people got huge on YouTube.
No, I would say not. I would also say that when more commodity organizations were doing this kind of thing, working with individuals, it was all new, and they were. I don't want to say maybe guiding. Or helping you quote tell the story. In a way that they approved of. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna edit myself there.
Well, I think we've matured or changed in the approval. And I remember on TikTok when I got blocked by a lot of people when a commodity organization approved social media personality took exception with me taking exception to their demand that we do better. And that was showing some blood from a C-section. And the person that posted it was was celebrated. Hey, thank God I had a vet and we had the modern tools to save this calf. And it was a picture of a squeeze chute in a vet clinic, and there was blood and a calf. And this social media personality said, we have to do better our consumer doesn't want to see blood. And it just hit me wrong that, who are you? I mean, you're, on one hand, you're telling us to be truthful. On the other hand, like, oh, you can't do that truth. I think we're past that.
It's a limited truth.
I think we're past that.
Yeah, it started out as a limited truth. You're right, and I think we are past that. I hope we are. I don't think we need to show 100% of our blood and gore, but I don't think there's anything wrong with celebrating, like you say, a C-section on a calf that survived. Or, maybe the cow did and the calf didn't. I think there's some self-editing there, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I also think that you have very few consumers actually watching that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
judging each other. Again,
yes.
We're judging each other.
Yeah, and we're probably our worst critics.
I don't want to see the blood and gore. Yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
are. We spend more time arguing amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
About how we should be presenting our story.
So as we've experienced Ag Twitter, and we've experienced Facebook and sharing and seeing what oversharing has done in our local areas, what are you using your social media platforms for now?
I wish I knew. I have no direction and no plan. I tend to find that when we're not in the field, I get very quiet because I feel like working on the computer or cleaning my house is not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't it? I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Is that fair? I mean, I don't know. I use social media now because I need a place to talk to people, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What I'm doing.
Well, you've started a new writing project, right?
I did. So I still have farmwife feeds, and I love farmwife feeds. It is my place to talk about recipes and talk about. And so I did start a new project called Our Way of Life, and it's been so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably eating up a lot of my social time because it's so fun. I have asked, and it's open to anybody who wants to tell a farm story. I am keeping it in agriculture because that's my love. Anybody who wants to tell a farm story, it can be moving, it can be funny, it can be a memory, it can be anything. And like you wrote about the hayfield, I had so many people comment, oh yeah, felt that. Oh yeah, felt that. Yesterday I just put out one that my daughter wrote about how she doesn't drive tractors, never has, because she hit a mailbox 14 years ago, and she's an agronomist. And it's for anybody to tell any ag stories that all of us can relate to in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has been fun, because I felt like, again, back to the choir, I felt like, let's work together. I mean, I don't, if consumers want to read it, or people who aren't in agriculture want to read it, that's great. But let's come together and let's be friends.
Let's be friends. There you go. Maybe we should get a line of plush pigs, cows, and sheep that have "Let's be friends" monogrammed on the side.
Let's be friends.
I like that mantra. Let's be friends.
Let's post things that make us happy, and let's be friends.
Well, I think, wow, you hit on something that a cousin of mine hit on in relationship to a post I made the other day. And Jim had posted, I remember the time when the big farmer helped a small farmer, and now this big farmer just gobbles up the small farmer. They're not friends. So maybe you do need to be friends.
It's hard to be friends in agriculture, to be honest with you. I mean, it's a cutthroat industry. I mean, and back on the local level, I mean, we're all competing for the same ground.
Mm-hmm. Ergo, some self-editing.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. The thing is, we tell our story and we think we're important, but, they want to say we feed the world, but honestly, if something happened to me or Chris and I decided to stop farming, food supply is still going to be there because somebody's going to eat those acres up. They're going to be happy to have those acres.
Well, and one of the other challenges...
It's a group project.
Oh, yeah, it is a group project. And some of us contribute more than others in the group. But the one thing that I think we can't say in public, but needs to be said, my soybeans and my corn ain't feeding nobody.
I try to tell people that too. Like, people always say, "Oh, we want to meet the farmer." Yeah, you can meet me, but what you're seeing, what I grow, I am not growing for the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
The consumer is not my customer.
Now, my corn goes to a terminal in New Haven, Indiana, and a lot of that goes to the southeast and gets fed to poultry of some sort. So mine is in the consumer food chain, but I'm not feeding the chicken. Then my soybeans, they'll get ground into soybean meal, so it'll go to cows and pigs and chickens, but I'm not making food outside of our sheep crop.
I think that's another thing. Like, I talked to a group yesterday, or Monday. They're like, so where does your product go? I'm like, my product right now, almost probably 99% of our corn goes over to the co-op plant for ethanol. I'm not even, and then from there, they're taking what's left. The DDGs are feeding cattle. I don't know where, everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm growing on my farm is not going to the consumer. The consumer is not my customer.
Mm-hmm.
My soybeans are going over to Bungie. They're being crushed. You got oil, you got soybean meal, or they're hitting the river and they're going east or overseas.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know where they're going.
So we're not feeding anybody. Not directly.
No, not directly. We are not farm to table. Somebody asked me about farm to table the other day, and I'm like, I don't even know what farm to table is. Because unless somebody's growing strawberries, what is farm to table?
Mm-hmm.
Because, the pork has to go through a processing plant or even a local butcher. That's not farm to table unless I'm doing it myself in my shop.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Tangent. Another friggin' tangent we got on.
Tangent. I love tangents.
Rabbit holes, tangents, whatever. I love it too.
Yeah.
And that's what that is the nice thing about the way that social media has evolved in agriculture. It's no longer a scripted, here's what you read. Now we're doing podcasts, and, we kind of had an idea what we were going to talk about, and how many rabbit holes have we gone down?
Yeah.
And I don't care who listens to this podcast. Well, I care. I care who listens, but I'm not going to make sure that the consumer in Greenwood or Indianapolis or Fort Wayne listens to us so that it gets a real feel for a farmer that's raising food in Jen Campbell. You and I are talking about social media and ag, and if somebody listens to it, more power to them.
I think, you do a little self-editing, post what makes you happy, and...
So I guess as we can summarize that we're doing a lot of talking to ourselves in social media in agriculture.
Mm-hmm. I think so. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want to 100% say, nothing wrong with that. To be honest with you, that's probably who I want to talk to. People who think the same as me, people who do the same thing as me. And if someone else out there is comment, like I get a lot of comments from people I went to high school with and blah, blah, I'm like, awesome.
Yeah. But the positive, now think about this. Because of social media, we get exposed to things that we want outside of our local area to make us better at doing what we want. And I'm thinking about cover crops. It hit my brain. 30 years ago, 30 years ago, when we got out of Purdue, and it was, if you wanted to learn about cover crops, and just use it as an example, you went to your local extension agent, or maybe you got something from Purdue, or maybe a local entity, Soil and Water, told you about cover crops. And that's what you knew.
Yeah.
And maybe you got a book and you read about how to do something because it was written in a book. Now, now I'm on a group on Facebook and it's like, hey, I'm thinking about doing X. And there'll be somebody from Ohio, somebody from Manitoba, somebody from Kansas say, hey, be careful. I did that. Do this. Don't put that much on. The cool part of social media is we get exposed to things that we never would get exposed to before, or it would be so limited.
I think that one of those examples is Chris wants to do relay cropping. He's been, past few years, he's been really trying to figure out, he's really researching it, trying to figure it out. And because of people on social media, some of my best friends that I talk to every day don't even live near me. And I just think there is so much good coming from social media that we need to stop focusing on that.
Yeah. And it's just another freaking tool. It's no different than this book that I got from Chevron Ortho. I mean, how long ago was that? This was published in it was so old, it still has this was loaned to. 1983. And this was, now if you wrote this book, it would be outdated before it even went to the printer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think it's amazing the information we can get. And whether it's all true or not, that's kind of, part of that is being, what is that word when you have to weed through stuff to find out what's true? I can't think of the word.
You have to discern and decipher.
But social media is so good. Not that that everything has bad qualities, so you got to focus on the good.
Well, I think that as we're talking, the next frontier for agriculture, it was social media. It started on Facebook, then went to Twitter, and now it's TikTok. I think it's AI and how we use that.
I love ChatGPT.
Oh my God. And I listened on the way home today that a teacher was lamenting that so many students were using ChatGPT to complete their assignments. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay. And then she said, every generation would have adapted it, regardless of who they were. I mean, if you had ChatGPT when we were in high school, we'd use the shit out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, we had a DOS computer and be dot matrix printers. Oh, yeah. So it's the next frontier for us. I mean, I use ChatGPT all the time.
Everything has a learning curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything has a learning curve. Like, you can put anything into ChatGPT. You don't have to believe it, just like you don't have to believe everything Google pulls up. It's learning to process and like, knowing what to ask it and making sure it's telling the truth. And I don't know. My kids make fun of me because I love it so much, but like, just because I type it in or ask it something or have it help me with something doesn't mean that I'm believing 100% of what it says, or I don't know.
Bingo.
I just think it's amazing.
And it gets back to what we talked about on social media. You have to self-edit. And if you take what ChatGPT told you and just published it, you're going to screw up. Because they're going to screw up. You need to research it a little bit, but it can be a tool that can be very positive. So it's no different than you sharing something that happened on your farm. You have to edit and think about the ramifications of you posting or writing that. No different than the same thing with ChatGPT, AI, Grok, whatever you use. You have to use that. It's just another tool and self-edit. I mean, read. Yeah.
And I think we should be able to use the tools that are presented to us. I mean, why not?
Yeah. I think from an education standpoint, get the foundations, and then, by golly, if my son is stupid enough to put in to ChatGPT, write this essay, and then copy it word for word, then he needs to get his ass in trouble.
He needs to get his ass. I agree. Like we don't copy and paste, but it can really it can open up your mind. Like, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. Let's look into that more. Mm-hmm. It's not a copy and paste tool, and I think that's where it gets a bad rap, is that there's copy and paste.
And the fun part, and I think you've done this before, as we interact on Twitter and LinkedIn and other places, you can tell the people they cut and paste.
Yeah.
And because I know they cut and paste, I'm not looking at what they wrote. I'm looking at like, oh my God, why did they cut and paste?
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the other day I did something for my daughter, and she's like, ChatGPT wrote that. You just copy and paste it. I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't want to do that.
Oh, yeah, this what I did, but yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't, yeah. She's like, that doesn't even sound like you. And I'm like, yeah, it sounds like ChatGPT.
Yeah, but you wanted an answer, and I got you one fast, so deal with it.
Yep, there you go.
Wow. So, it's conditional close number 2, going back to my sales training, we've covered a lot on social media. We've talked a lot about self-editing, and I really like the 2 things you said. Tell what makes you happy, and let's all be friends. Yeah. Yeah, and I think...
And when I say tell what makes you happy, like, mine aren't always positive posts, but if they make me happy, so to speak, by getting it off my chest, or... And a little self-editing, but, it's not always positive, but, it can be a lesson, it doesn't always have to be, who is that, Polly Sunshine?
Pollyannish.
What her name is?
It's always good.
Pollyannish.
Yeah. Well, and what makes you happy, I posted that we had a crappy lambing season. I mean, we lost more lambs and ewes than we ever freaking had. It did not make me happy to say we had a crappy lambing season, but it was cathartic.
Yes. Yeah, cathartic. Mm-hmm. That's a good word. Some things aren't always happy, but they're cathartic to just admit to the world.
But at the same time, I did not post every single lamb that died.
Right. Mm-hmm. And we thank you for that.
Oh, I would have shot myself. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I lost 3 calves this year, and I don't have a lot of cattle. And I posted that we lost one, and I had one get sick. Because I had posted sick calf in my bathroom. Mm-hmm. And that calf didn't make it through the night. Mm-hmm. But we lost 2 more after that. So there's, you gotta have some balance there.
Yeah. Well, you have to, the balance is, man, it sure sounds like we got a horrible farm. Because I keep posting negative and negative and negative. And so you post a positive, like, we got a pretty good life, and everybody's going, really? You lost 3 calves, you had 4 flat tires, you hit a mailbox, your daughter doesn't want to drive a tractor. I mean, you got a pretty shitty farm.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. There's a woe is me and the martyr syndrome. Why do farmers have such a martyr syndrome? That's the other thing I always think is, and not to get another tangent, but we aren't martyrs. We are not doing the Lord's work out here. We chose this job. We are being paid to do this job. This isn't something assigned to us by the government. Oh, that's another tangent. Okay.
Well, you put some limits, and you're really close to crossing that line you said was a limit.
I know. Sorry.
That's okay. Woo! Anyway, so I think we're going to end with tell what makes you happy, and let's all be friends.
All be friends.
Yeah. I mean, that's Pollyannish, but I think it's fair.
A little Pollyannish of me, but...
Yeah, but I think about the farmers in my area that I interact with, and some of them have taken ground. I've taken ground from them. It's just, I still want to stop and say hi to them when I see them at Menards or maybe even stop the truck when they're alongside the road and say, hey, you need some help or something? I mean, we still need to get back to that. Because it's still a small community.
It is a small community.
Yeah. Well, Pollyanna, we're going to end with my 5 questions. And I really appreciate you being on. And I don't know if you prepared. I had to ask ChatGPT to remind me what the questions were. So, where'd you go? Oh, I had it backwards. So, what is one lesson from ag that you carry with you every single day?
Oh, wow. Even on the bad days, it's a good day. Because I get to do what I love.
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky that and there are days I have to tell myself that. I am lucky to get to do this.
Yeah, we are lucky. And I'm not doing it full time in the way you are, but we are lucky. Yeah. If you could have coffee with any historical figure in agriculture, who would it be?
Oh my gosh. Do they have to be dead or are they alive?
Any historical figure. Doesn't have to be dead.
Historical? That's an interesting question. Because they may not be... So if it had to be someone famous, so to speak, Temple Grandin. If they weren't famous, I would love to talk to someone who farmed this ground in the early 1900s.
You're not the first one to say Temple Grandin, and I think that's a great one.
Oh, I doubt it, yeah.
She has a legacy. And the predecessors, I haven't had that exact one, but I've thought about it for years. I mean, you're fortunate to be farming Chris's ground and being able to step back and say to his great-grandfather or whatever, like, how'd you get the stumps out? How did you get your fence straight? How did you decide that you were going to put a lane here? You know, the mundane questions I think would be really cool to have that conversation.
Yeah. Everyday stuff.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point that I've talked with Micah Malcolm, and he and I talked about how he would love to go back and talk to his grandfather. And that plays into that, the predecessors. I think that's a great answer. What is one underappreciated or quirky thing about ag that more people should know?
Wow. I have no idea. Can you give me an example?
Well, I think we already hit on it. That ag is really, really, really small.
Yeah.
I
think it's a lot smaller than people think.
Yeah.
I think. Ask me the question again.
What is one underappreciated or quirky thing about the ag industry that more people should know?
I think underappreciated is how much this is a team effort. And I'm not just talking, we aren't doing this alone. It is Fred Williams who's bringing me fuel for semis at 6 o'clock yesterday evening because we had loads to go to put and had run our tank dry. It's, the agronomist coming out to look at because the leaves are turning yellow somewhere or we don't know what it is, or whoever brings lunch or the person you can call to get something picked up in town that you don't have time to get to. All those people. We go back to social media. We complain. We talk on social media about how hard farmers work. Where is the group of farm wives? Well, there is a group of farm wives, never mind. Where is the group of co-op wives or co-op workers that are constantly complaining about the 12-hour days they're making? Maybe I don't see it, but I don't know where it's at. We are not lone cowboys out here, right? Couldn't do any of this without the underappreciated group that's keeping our wheels turning.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep. It takes a team. It does. And
Yep.
and we talked about how hard we farmers work. And the guy that sprays for me, he comes over here and he was working on Memorial Day weekend and he sprayed my stuff on a Sunday. Yep. It takes more than just whoever's got their butt in the tractor seat.
That's exactly right.
What is your favorite ag-related tool, product, or innovation?
Just off the top of my head, maybe auto steer right now.
You're like number 6. It said auto steer. And so why do you think auto steer is such a great innovation?
That's a good question, actually. It fascinates me, I think. It obviously keeps the rows straight. I mean, you don't have to put the markers out. You don't have to. There is no overlapping of not just the planting, but the working the ground. It's very precise when it comes to, you're not overworking sections of ground. You're not overlapping your tools. I'm fascinated that it's a thing and that we can do it, that it does it from space. It's weird. It's like this little magic thing. There's probably a better answer, but off the top of my head, auto steer.
No, I think that's a great one. And as you're writing down, as you were talking about it, I wrote 3 things that auto steer does for us. Now, I don't have auto steer. I've used auto steer. We don't have auto steer. I've got GPS. My auto steer is light bar. Okay.
Yeah.
But first, I've
used a light bar.
Yeah. First, I think about stress and safety. And you're a lot less stressed when you can just relax on that half-mile row. Totally get it.
Yeah.
You also have the safety concern where you're not as stressed, you're not as tired because you're not concentrating. Because think about when you get at 9 o'clock at night and you're trying to follow that marker.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, you get cross-eyed. Economics, okay, yeah. Auto steer, I saved X amount of bags. I'm more efficient because I have X. And the illustration, I think it was Dave Walton, he said he picked up a new farm. And he saw the rows of the previous tenant that did not have auto steer. And when he got across this field, I forget how big it was, and it was an odd-shaped field, he had a planter pass and a half less passes than the previous farmer.
Is that right?
Because he was auto steer. I'm like, that's huge.
I think, yeah, the planter is huge. I think what's underrated is the tillage tools because it's more precise. You're not overworking. You're not leaving a gap. You're not overworking just part of the field. I mean, you're getting a very concise, repetitious tillage on that ground.
Yeah, so if you're pulling a 25-foot toolbar, field cultivator, and you overlap 2.5 feet because you're eyeing it, you got lined up, that's 10%.
Yeah.
You add that over 1,500 acres, you work 150 acres you shouldn't work.
Yeah, that and what you're doing to the soil itself.
Yeah.
And the fuel and the wear and tear on the tractor and there's just a hole that you don't even think about.
I think the bigger one about your illustration of auto steer is it is a perfect illustration of the adaptability of technology in agriculture because auto steer comes from the construction industry. It was adapted from bulldozers and graders to do a better job making roads and houses and foundations. And somebody at Trimble, I believe it was, said, hey, what if we put this in a tractor?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So the last one, if you thought the other ones are good, I'm going to be interested to see what you say about this one. What is one small change that can make a huge impact in agriculture's future?
Attitude.
In what way would attitude make a difference?
attitude is always my change. The way you think, adapting, how you present yourself on social media, how you present yourself. I just think that, we can have all kinds of technology changes. I think those are coming, but I think that personal attitude, attitude seems to be my go-to answer for things like that.
Mm-hmm. And
I think part of that is because social is so prevalent now and so used and so out there that our attitude is going to be a big component of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's think about where we started our conversation with you dealing with pulling that 40-foot planter down the road outside of Greenwood. Your attitude changed how you were able to get that planter where it needed to go.
It does. And that goes back to the self-editing, too. I had to change my thinking because it wasn't going to do me any good to post hateful comments on Facebook. It wasn't going to change my situation, and it was probably just going to piss a bunch of people off if they were paying attention.
So we get back to attitude.
Yeah.
If you have the right attitude, we can adapt and we can handle what gives us, what our circumstances give us. And that's a tough one.
I think so.
And it goes back to mental health, and that's a whole nother
topic.
That's a ground hole. That's not a rabbit hole. That's a big one.
Yeah, that's something you're gonna fall in. Not just turn an ankle.
Yeah, we'd break a leg and have to put a bullet in our head.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, Jen, as I expected, we went places I knew we were we would go that I didn't expect to go, but we went. So I appreciate your time. This is great.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of nuggets here that all of us in ag that participate in social media could take and think about how we project ourselves, how we send a message about not only what we do, but what we do as an industry. And that's your timer saying, we're done with the podcast.
My agronomist calling.
As in your daughter?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, Jen, thank you. And to my audience, thank you for joining along for another journey. And this one's a little bit different, but please reach out if you have any questions for me or Jen on how we can help your attitude, how we can help you self-edit, and how we can just realize that we're just a bunch of ants doing what a lot of other ants are doing.